everyone, and welcome back to week 2 of the 40-day sugar fast. This week we are starting with days 11 and we're going to go through day 16. But before we get into the 40-day sugar fast, I just want to reflect for a moment and share a little bit more about my journey with sugar. Some of you might know, but I wrote this book once called Invited, and it feels like ages ago, but I wrote this book and it's all about hospitality and living a life of connection, not perfection. Now, the cake on the front is my husband's grandmother's pound cake. And I have such special memories baking in the kitchen with Nan and her teaching me not only how to make her pound cake, but her 7-layer chocolate cake, and also my own grandmother teaching me how to make her special cookies. And I have always grown up with this love of baking and hospitality. And I talk about that a lot in this book. And I can remember when I wrote Invited, this was really in that season of me just wanting to gift others with food. And I was still at a beginning place in my journey where I was looking at food as art and beautiful. And while I still believe all these things, it's just so neat for me to see where I am now versus where I was when I wrote this book. Honestly, after I wrote Invited, I went through a season of burnout. And I just was really exhausted and weary, and my body started to do all these crazy things. And I think looking back now and what I've learned through my nutritional training is I was really in this fight or flight season of my life. And I was experiencing inflammation and burnout and fatigue, which was causing me to have weight gain and just, a lot of anxious thoughts. I remember working on Invited late into the night, trying to reach deadlines. And of course, with that, I would snack in the evenings. And I didn't really have a good control over sugars in my life. I saw them as a treat and a reward. And then after I wrote the book, I went through this season of burnout and I began to gain weight, and I just wasn't in a place where I felt like my best self. And so the things that began to change really in the year after I wrote Invited was I started to focus on a new workout routine. And I also started to really look at the foods that I was eating and baking more at home with natural sugars, and also looking at my whole diet as a whole and learning how to feed myself with healthy fats and proteins and slow releasing carbs. And so today, I'm honestly sitting here in a place, again, this has been a journey for me. I don't think I could have done this sugar fast 5 years ago. I really am not even sure if I could have done it a year ago, if I'm going to be honest, because I feel like every year I've learned something new about myself through a season of fasting, and also something new about the Lord. And so as we get into our 40-day sugar fast this week, I really love how Wendy, she touches on different things that we fast, but she also relates it back to food. And one of the things that she talks about on day 12 are food triggers. And she uses this verse, Psalm 139, 23, 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. And so as she goes through this week, she talks about different food triggers. And what we mean by this is, what is that thing, that impulse, that thing that makes you say, oh, I need a Diet Coke, or oh, I need to grab some M&Ms, or is it stress? Is it not enough sleep? Is it not enough exercise? Is it just this need to be social? What are the things that trigger you? And this is a build upon from last week, but I think it's important for us to sit here for a second, because she even goes on to talk about things like social media being an addiction, our phones being an addiction. This need to compare is an addiction. And what often happens with these outward surroundings that we have, it leads us back to food. And so she even talks about retail and retail shopping. And so I want to ask you today, as you're getting into this week 2 of your 40-day sugar fast, are you able to identify any triggers that you might see as an impulse to want you to eat? And maybe it's not just eating sugar. Maybe it's this impulse to indulge in a bottle of wine or a large plate of spaghetti when you normally don't eat something that heavy. What is it that is triggering you to go for those foods? And I know, looking back on my own journeys, a lot of my food triggers would relate around comparison. And I hate to admit that, because honestly, I need to have more self-confidence and confidence in who the Lord has made me to be. But I've just really struggled with that over the years. When I wrote Invited, I just had all these big hopes and dreams that this was going to be this, huge success. When in reality, it was such a gift to the people around me and people that honestly bought the book that I've never even met. I remember there was this great little group in Auburn that did the small group resource guide that went along with Invited. And they found me through a mutual friend. And that was such a gift. It was really such a gift. But to me, I wanted a million little groups, doing this book. And I just wanted more, more, more. And I think sometimes this need for achievement and this drive for success, it can turn me into this person who strives for this perfection and just wanting more. And sometimes that can become a food trigger, and I release that through baked goods. And so that's just my story of a food trigger, and I would love to know yours. And then as we move into this week, I want to talk a little bit about sugar and its addictive qualities. And, I'm going to share a lot about this online and in person. But, when you're looking at your overall health and the systems within your body, your sugar levels play such a role in your mood, your fatigue, inflammation. It can play a role with autoimmune issues, digestive issues, your nervous system, just all the different systems in the body. And I always go back to gut health, because that is where we have that mind-body connection. And whatever we eat, whatever we digest, this is the first system that it travels through. It travels through our mouth, down into our esophagus, and then into our stomach, and then it goes into our digestive tract. And so before any food becomes fuel in our bodies, it has to be processed through our gut. So what happens when we consume too much sugar? We then get these hits, and we get these hits of more. It's our body signaling us for this dopamine hit to have more. She also talks about wheat inside the book, and that's a whole nother study that we could go deep into, about how because of the way our industrial revolution was in America, so many of our foods are now processed after the war, and they're chemically redesigned to make us crave them. And it's not things that are good for us. So that's why a whole foods diet is really key to, you could be keto, you could be any other, paleo, or you could be just eat fish and a pescatarian, or whatever it is. But a whole foods diet really is essential to our optimal health. And then when you're looking at a whole foods diet, having a control on your sugar levels is going to help you have a low glycemic level, so you don't experience these highs and these lows. And so one of the very first things I always like to share with someone who's coming to me and they say, I just want to grab that sugar, or I feel like I'm really inflamed and I don't know what's causing this inflammation, I usually start to look at our glycemic levels and how we can balance those out so we don't have those highs and those lows. Because when we begin to have those lows, we begin to crash. And when we get crashed, we get tired, we get hangry, we begin to experience those triggers, those triggering emotions, those triggering thoughts, those triggering impulses, and it's going to make us act in a way that we might later regret. So, one of the very best things that you can do to have a low glycemic level is to start your day off not eating sugar. Whoa, it's like rocket science, right? But having something that is savory for breakfast instead of sweet is very, very important, because the way that you stack your diet throughout the day is going to help you monitor those glycemic levels. Now, I would love to get into more details with you on your whole day, and that's something that we can do through one-on-one consulting, or I can share, different supplements or foods that I think are good to balance you throughout the day. But I want to leave you with this. Start with something savory instead of something sweet. So that includes your coffee. That includes not really even having slow releasing carbs straight away, but going for a good protein. So an egg or a turkey sausage or turkey bacon. You can start with something savory along with a vegetable frittata. That's a great, excellent source of fuel for you right when you get started in the day. You might think, Kristen, I don't want a salad when I get going in the morning. And I get that. But even having avocado toast, having your avocado paired with your egg and maybe a slice of keto bread or Ezekiel bread, whatever works for you, that can be really great to get you started for the day. Or just have the egg and have a slice of avocado and have it over some mixed greens. That's a delicious way to start your day. So look into that and get started with that. Let me know how it works for you this week. And I'm happy to share more tips and tricks as we go along with our journey of what to eat when throughout our day. So as we close today, I want to ask you, 1, what are your triggers? And 2, what can you change with your breakfast and that first bit of food and drink that you consume each day? I'd love to know, and I'll talk to you real soon.